Okay, so to begin, can you each think of an issue that you have, something that you would like to be different in your lives? It could be a physical issue, it could be a relationship issue or an emotional issue, or some sort of block that you've got somewhere in your life. It could be pretty much anywhere at all. Don't make it too personal, because I'm going to ask you to share what it is, but something that you don't mind sharing that you would like to be different in your life. Take a few seconds and then I'll ask what it is. Everyone's still looking pensive. Does everyone have something? Okay, so let's go around. Let's use Anne's inspiration. Let's do it in alphabetical order. Anne, what did you have?
I would like to be more focused on my priorities.
Mm-hmm. Diane?
I overthink things.
Okay. My English is being put to the test. Glenda?
You next, yeah. I would like to be more flexible around my lower back and hips.
Okay. Jackie?
Yeah, I would like to remember to do more exercise, look after my body more.
Okay. And Mark?
Like to worry about stuff less.
Yeah. Okay, good. So we'll come back a bit later to see whether when you understand about trapped emotions and what they are a bit more, whether any of those, some of them, all of them can be could be helped by looking at and releasing trapped emotions. So what is a trapped emotion? Does anybody have, I know you have a very good idea, Glenda, because you've watched the videos, but anyone who hasn't watched the videos, does anybody have an idea of what it means, what a trapped emotion is? Oh, Jackie, you'll know as well, of course. Anyone else? Okay, let me explain it very briefly. It's when we go through life, if we're in a healthy condition, if everything's going well, if we're in an optimal state of being, then things will happen to us. Some things will be great and there's nothing to worry about. Some things will be difficult. And when difficult things happen to us, if we're in a healthy state of being, we'll go through those difficult things, we'll experience what we have to, we'll process what we need to process during that time, and at the end of it might take us a few minutes, few hours, whatever it is, depends how big it is, we get over it and get on with our lives. And it's really interesting that you may have heard of this before, when you see animals in the wild, when you see deer being chased by a tiger, the tiger finishes chasing them, that deer doesn't sort of collapse in trauma and start crying. That deer just carries on eating grass. And that's what we're built to do too, if we process what's happened to us in the optimal way when it's actually happening. So that's what happens when something comes along and we're not in an optimal state. Then maybe we're overwhelmed, maybe we've got too much going on, maybe life is just really stressful at the moment, or we're too tired, we didn't sleep properly. We just decide, I don't have the strength, I don't have the energy at this moment to take on and fully experience this emotion that's come up in me because of what's happened. So I'm going to choose not to deal with it now. I'm going to choose to save it for later. And basically what we're doing at that moment is we're repressing the emotion. We're putting it inside us. And when we put it inside us, it's not an emotion anymore. It's a ball of energy, because emotions essentially are just energy, just like we are. It's a whole other story, which I've talked about before. Don't worry about that. So this ball of energy can go anywhere in the body and cause any sort of issue. So it might be a physical issue. So it's really quite common. And for the emotion, the emotion code is a very small part of what I do, and that's about dealing with trapped emotions. the emotion code alone, just on its own, can work really well on pain very often. I first found this out myself when I had when I was learning the emotion code, when it was just this novelty. I never thought of myself as an energy healer at that time. I was just learning something new, just for idle interest, really, and I didn't really put much stock on it. And I had this searing back pain, and it was getting worse and worse, and I just definitely wasn't going to sleep that night. And I asked my wife to take a look, and there was massive inflammation on the back as well. And she said, well, you know, you're learning this emotion code. Why don't you try that? And I was like, yeah, right. Okay, might as well just give it a go. And I did. And after I released 20 trapped emotions in one go at the end of that session, the pain was in half, the inflammation was completely gone, and the pain just carried on reducing, you know, but literally during the session, the pain was coming down, and at the end of it, it was just remarkable. And then I've seen that happen with other people so much, and with physical pain very often, and restricted movement and things like that. Not every time, but often you see in the session itself. And so you will have seen Glenda on the video. There's that little guy who sort of swipes across the bottom, and he can't, you know, at the start of his session, he didn't have any mobility in his arms. He said he couldn't even lift the phone. By the end of the session, he was doing this exercise, and you could see it was quite a powerful little 10-second testimonial that I put in there. But that happens quite often, you know, maybe not quite as dramatic as that, but you see people actually feel a tangible reduction in the pain or increase in the movement that they had during the session itself. But it's not only physical, it can be emotional issues as well. By removing trapped emotions, you can, you know, or by having trapped emotions, you're sort of storing up, you know, so you know what happens if they go to a physical part of the body. So if they go to a knee, for example, you might bang your knee, and that knee then doesn't recover in the way that you would expect it to. It carries on niggling. You get that pain, you know, just persistently, even getting worse maybe. Why does that happen? Very, very probably it's because there's trapped emotions that have found their way to the knee. Maybe just one emotion sometimes a bunch of them. Sometimes it's something a bit more complex than that, but we deal with that as well, but we'll talk about that later. But emotionally, if the energy of the trapped emotions go to one of the emotion centers of the body, one of the places where the emotions are created, it can cause all sorts of emotional issues. It can cause, for example, it could cause anything actually. So there's one woman who came and she had this belief, or she had this pattern that was repeating in her life, that she was all alone and nobody ever helped her with anything. So we did some work on that. We actually used a bit more than trapped emotions, but there was a large element of trapped emotions in there as well. After a few sessions on that, we did one particular session, and after that session, she went about her day, and she had 5 or 6 people spontaneously come to her and offer her help. Some of them were people that she didn't know. Some of them were people who she did know, but didn't really have a relationship with, didn't have any sort of communication with. They passed her, they saw her in need of something, and they came and spontaneously helped her. And she was just shocked. She had, you know, she wrote me a big long email at the end of the day about all the different people who'd helped her. So all of that can come from releasing trapped emotions and imbalances like trapped emotions. And there's a particular type of, it's not a type of trapped emotion, it's just the same as all of the others, but something happens to a certain number of these trapped emotions. And that is when we go through a difficult time in life, we create something around our heart called a heart wall. Now, to mix things up a little bit, I'm going to play in just a couple of very short 90-second clips from videos about the emotion code and body code that I've made recently. So just so you're not listening to me blab on without any variety for 20 minutes, you're going to get a sort of 90-second break here. So the first one is a video about this thing called the heart wall, where I'm explaining what it is, how it works, and what sort of impact it can have on us. So now I have to work out how to share a video, because there's a way to share a video on this Zoom that doesn't make it look all grainy. but I'm just trying to work. I have to relearn it every time. I think I've got it. Okay. Yeah, so this is the video on the heart wall. While creating the emotion code, Dr. Bradley Nelson discovered a previously unknown phenomenon. He found that at particularly difficult or traumatic times of life, we use a mechanism to protect ourselves. We build an energetic wall around our hearts to stop us from having to experience the full intensity of the situation. But the body is an extremely efficient system. Where would this additional energy come from? What happens is, we appropriate a few of these energy balls that have come from our trapped emotions and use them to create a shield. He called this shield a heart wall. The heart wall does its job. It does protect us from having to endure at full strength the intensity of what's happening to us at a time where we might not be able to bear it. But once we have found a way to change our life situation and move on, the heart wall doesn't come down. It remains in place. With all this shielding, it becomes impossible for the heart to give and receive what it was built to give and receive. We remain partially detached from others, and we find ourselves unconsciously attracting rejection or confrontation or failure, or not moving forward in an area of our lives. Sometimes our whole lives can feel directionless and miserable. It affects each person differently, but I've never worked with anybody who doesn't have a heart wall. So there we are. So that's taken from a longer 9-minute introduction to the emotion code. And if you can watch that and share it and like it and comment on it or whatever, that would be amazing. It's on the front page of my website. And the flip side to it, did you all see that clearly, by the way? Did it all come across? Okay, so the flip side to it is that when you bring down this heart wall, and typically people have between 30 or 50 trapped emotions in the heart wall, people have really quite dramatic changes in their lives. So when I brought down my own heart wall at the start, I was really sort of I'd heard all of these stories. I'd heard like how dramatic it could be, and I was expecting the world to change the next day, and the next day everything was the same, and I was like, what's going on? This is disappointing. And I even almost gave up the emotion code at that time, because I had such high expectations of what would happen, and nothing seemed to have happened. But I sort of carried on with it, and I'm glad I did, because when I looked back a few months later, it was around 6 months later after removing my heart wall, I looked back to that period, and there was a huge change. There'd been a huge change in my life, both in my situation, my actual situation, and the sort of ways that people reacted to me. The sort of energy I got back from other people was really different. So for example, if I'd been sitting in this meeting a few years ago, very high probability that you would all be having quite negative experiences of me and we'll be chatting about that. That's just what I somehow was attracting. That seems not to happen anymore, and people seem to be reacting in a much more positive way to me. That all goes back to the moment when I released the heart wall. So there was that, what was coming to me from outside. There was also how I was experiencing life, and how I was dealing with the things that came, and I became much more resilient to stuff as well. And it happened very gradually. So I'm really glad I didn't give up like I almost did after releasing the heart wall and not seeing the dramatic changes, because 6 months later, it's like when you climb up a hill, sort of a not very steep hill, but you don't realize how high you've climbed till you get to the top and look down. It was a bit like that. So that's how the heart wall works. And with this whole emotion code thing, it's sort of quite easy to doubt it, because it's so simple. All I'm doing is muscle testing, which is getting yes or no answers from the person's subconscious mind, which is the only part that people need to get used to being able to do. Most people are not able to do that without learning to do it or finding that they can do it. But it's worth doing. I never thought I could do it. It's worth doing, because it's possible to learn this for yourself. And I always encourage my clients to learn the emotion code for themselves, because it's so simple and it's so powerful. And then we focus together on the deeper work when we come together. But if they're doing all of this in between, they're generating a lot of the really positive results by themselves. And some of the advantages of having this emotion code and being able to do it for yourself are that, you know, you can just use it anytime. You must have had moments in life where you where things just start to fall apart, or just, you know, you start to feel down and you don't know why. Just a minute, you're just thinking, I don't know what's happened today. I just don't feel right, something not right. Ask your subconscious mind. And, you know, there's a way to, this is the muscle testing part. And I did my last talk on this, and that's still on my YouTube channel if you want to check it out. And it sort of talks you through how to try to do this muscle testing by yourself. But you ask the subconscious mind, do I have any trapped emotions that are causing this issue, that are causing me to feel like this? And through the yes or no answers, you find out if you do, and you find out what they are. And there's a very, very simple process to then release them. Find out any additional information we need to about them, and then release them. It's really, you know, it sounds a bit complicated if you haven't done it before, but literally it can take you, once you get good at it, you can do 3 of these in a minute. I can whack through these trapped emotions. I could do like 10 of them in a couple of minutes, and it can make a huge difference to the rest of my day. But, you know, I've known of people who use it in other ways as well. I heard of one guy who was a compulsive eater, and he was always drawn to food emotionally. You know, he was always wanting to snack and always wanting to take food. And he allowed himself, he said, okay, I'm not going to force myself to stop. I'm going to allow myself to eat whatever I want, whenever I want it, but on the condition that before I take it, I see if there are any trapped emotions causing me to want this food. And he did that, and, you know, his compulsive eating disappeared almost instantly, because he'd release 1 or 2 trapped emotions and find the craving for the food wasn't there anymore. So it can be really powerful. One of my favorite ways to use it is if I wake up in the night and not able to go back to sleep, release a few, ask, are there any trapped emotions that I could release to help me sleep? 2 or 3 of them often, and I'm out. it really works. It's really good. So there are lots of reasons to learn it for yourself. And again, it's so simple that, as I was saying, it's easy to doubt. But when you see consistent results in yourself, in other people, in working on people, I mean, you always need to get permission to work on anybody, but sometimes you know, if it's a small child or an animal, they don't know they're being worked on. It's the parents who give the permission, or the owner who gives permission. And you see the results in those people as well, who don't even know that they're being worked on. And when you see that consistently enough, you stop doubting and you say, okay, now I don't know how it works, but I just know it works. And the guy who invented the emotion code, an American doctor called Dr. Brad Nelson, he has a really nice thing that he says when people come to him and he said, well, how could this emotion be behind this issue? Or how could this imbalance be behind this issue? He always says, well, don't ask me, I just work here. He just, his job is to sort of use these techniques that he created, find the root of the issue, and release it. That part he can do, but what he can't do is explain why this particular thing causes this particular result. So there we are. So if for more complex issues, and sometimes for simple issues, there are other causes as well, not just trapped emotions, but trapped emotions are a really big part of nearly every piece of work, everything that we work on. And what I normally use with people is the body code. It's a sort of massively extended version of the emotion code. It contains all sorts of different types of imbalance that we can look at, but the emotion code is included within it. And probably, I would say certainly, trapped emotions come up more often than any other type of imbalance, even though there are hundreds of other types of imbalance. And just to give you an idea of how big it is, I'm going to share you another 90 seconds of the body code, how big that is, and just to give you an idea of what it covers, and also to show off this editing skills that I learned by putting this. I had this concept of how I was going to show all of these different types of imbalances. I had it in my head and I was like, how the hell am I going to do that? And I forced myself to sit down with a brand new editing software thing. And I just found a way to do it. So I'm actually quite proud of that. But I'm actually sharing it with you, not only for that reason, but to give you an idea of what's in the body code. So give me 10 seconds. There we are. Our video on the emotion code explained the basics of energy healing and how emotional energies trapped in the body can be at the root of so many ailments. The body code takes things several steps further and deals with far more than just emotions. It deals with 6 broad types of imbalance. The first is energy, and to give you a sense of the scale of the body code, the entire emotion code is just one of 27 types of imbalance in this area. Others include imbalances related to past traumas, to erroneous beliefs that we've taken on or bad decisions we've made in difficult moments but whose residue remains with us, concepts that we've come to be triggered by, the imprint of past illnesses, offensive energies intended to harm us, and more. The second concerns imbalances and disconnections in the organs, glands, tissues and systems of the body, as well as parts of the energy body, like our meridians and chakras. Third is toxins we've picked up from the environment, food, dental treatment, and so on. Pathogens like viruses, bacteria, mold, parasites, and more are dealt with as well. And even the energetic residue of pathogens that are no longer there or that may have been inherited. Tiny structural misalignments in the skeleton or other parts of the body or energy body can also be identified and corrected. And nutritional deficiencies, dietary needs, magnetic field imbalances and more are part of the final area on nutrition and lifestyle. Its scope is vast, and this is reflected in the results it can achieve. So so there's a huge amount. The body code is really big, but the thing that comes up most often of all of those is trapped emotions. And going back to your original things that you said could be issues for you. So Glenda, flexibility in the back. I mean, there's a good chance that it could be just trapped emotions that are behind that, and a few of those released could make a difference. If not, we've got the body code, which has all of those additional ones. But that's the sort of thing where trapped emotions alone can make a huge difference. Mark, you had less worrying. Yeah, I mean, that's a heart wall thing. But I mean, there's additional work we can do on by looking at everything. But the heart wall is likely to be a primary cause of why things are worrying, are concerning, and why we don't have trust in just letting things be. Jackie, remembering to exercise. That's one that might be a little bit more, a little bit more involved with the bigger types of imbalance, because it sounds like there's a, it's not necessarily a severe issue like somebody who's sort of seething in pain, but it's something that's probably a little more complicated in terms of what's behind it. But yeah, that's absolutely the sorts of things that can be dealt with the body code. Anne, more focused on, I can't read my own writing here. Sorry, you wanted to be more focused on something.
Priorities.
Oh, and your priorities. Okay. Similarly, so the heart wall again might make a huge difference to that, but there may be additional stuff as well that's more, that's contributing as well. And Diane, overthinking things. Similarly, it's similarly that's like the heart wall is likely to make certainly a big dent into that as well. So all of these things can have a very big imprint. Very big result, I should say. I'm not speaking properly now. Just from releasing trapped emotions. Some of them might need a bit of additional stuff as well with the body code. The way I'd normally work with people who come to me is I always start with a heart wall if they're happy with it. But the way the heart wall is released is it's in stages, because I would never do like 30 or 40 or 50 at a time. I did once actually, when that woman's body was just like, yes, I want more. But I would very rarely do 30 plus trapped emotions at a time, especially from the heart wall, because that's a lot for the body to process. Usually, I always check in with the person's body to see, is this enough for now? And usually after 10, 15, 20 trapped emotions, sometimes less for some people, on the heart wall, it says that's enough on the heart wall. We'll come back to it next time. And then we use the rest of the session just using the body code to work on either the main issue or a different issue from a broader point of view.